couple of months before we started St Mark's in 2012, I read a book by a guy called Jim Cymbala called Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire. If you're looking for stuff to read this year, I highly recommend it. Jim is a pastor in Brooklyn in New York, and he found himself leading a church that he would describe as pretty empty on most weekends, and the people that were in it were kind of needy and exhausting and not very energetic or enthusiastic. And he just died inside, burnt out, frustrated and exhausted. He finds himself on a retreat, I think in Florida, just looking at the ocean and praying. And over the course of that few days, he felt God invite him into a life of prayer, to base everything on prayer, to trust the power of the God to whom he was praying, that God would be able to do more than Jim was going to be able to do. That something stirs in Jim's soul and he goes back to Brooklyn. You can read about the history of the church and all that's happened there since. It's remarkable, and there's Grammys involved in it. It's great. But he stands up the following weekend in that church, and he says to the smattering of people that are there, he says to them this: from now on, the health of this church will be measured not in the activity, not in the services, not in the preaching, not even in the social justice stuff that we do. It'll be measured in who turns up to pray. The barometer, he says, of the life and health of this church will be set by our prayer life. That is the only thing that we will measure, because that is the only thing that we will care about, and that is the foundation of everything. I was captivated by that. I thought, yes, that is everything. And so when we started, if you were here back then, you'll remember. If you weren't, you might not know. But when we started, we did two things. We met for brunch in a rubbish cafe on a Sunday, and on a Thursday night, we prayed at our house. We chose Thursday night because Alice was doing hockey on a Tuesday night and I was out on a Monday night or whatever. There's nothing holy about Thursday night. It was the night we had. So we said Thursday night round at our house. Now, I've grown up in the church and I've been in enough prayer meetings to know that prayer meetings suck, because nobody wants to pray. Nobody really knows what to say. There's loads of shuffling. The same people say the same thing every time. And then there's a bit of awkward silence, and you just have to learn this language about amen and blah, 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 blah. And as pumped up as I was about wanting to pray, I did not want to do prayer meetings every week. And so I said this, and again, if you were there, you'll remember. I said, look, it's going to be at 7:30. I'll put the kettle on. At 8 o'clock, I'm going to sit in my front room and I'm going to start praying. And if you want to sit there and listen, great. But if you want to join in, you're going to have to interrupt me, because I'm not going to have one of these prayer meetings where I say something and I say amen, and then there's like this 2-minute pause, and then two people feel like, oh, they should pray, and then they start praying at the same time, and I'm so sorry, no, after you. It's like, I'm not going to do that. We're going to pray, and we're going to base our faith, and we're going to base our church, and we're going to base the life of everything we do from this point on passionate prayer. And we're going to ask God for all the stuff we don't have, which was easy back then because we didn't have squat. And so we gathered and we prayed for money. We prayed for people. We prayed for somewhere to gather and meet because we didn't have that. We prayed for God to lead us into what we should do and what we should be involved with. And in those next 4, 5, and 6 months, we felt God lead us into the area of child poverty and domestic abuse in the city. We met a lady who ran the Buzzy and said, you can use it for free if you polish our tables. We polished our tables, and then we used that venue for free for 4 years. We had a carol service, which, I don't know, a couple of hundred people came to, and at the end of that, the 6 of us who were, or maybe like 8, 9, 10 of us in the church at the time, we held buckets to try and raise money at the end of it, and then we went into this Buzzy place that none of us had ever been into in the first weekend of January, and 25 people turned up for our first kind of public gathering. And it was all because we prayed, and we carried on praying. And then this is what happened. Then it started to become a bit of a habit. It started to become a bit of a thing we had to do. Some people got other things to do on Thursday nights. Some people had kids and so couldn't come anymore. Some people moved away. Some people got bored. And ultimately, I got so fed up and hacked off of sitting in a circle with people who just, it felt to me like, watched me, that I decided we're done, because I'd forgotten that what I said at the start was, I'm going to pray, and if you want to be there, fine, but you're going to have to interrupt. Again, if you were there and you'll remember it, there were some painful Thursday nights when nobody said anything for a while, and then I would draw it to a close after 15 minutes, and then we would look at each other and shuffle. Well, I was wrong. We shouldn't have stopped it. The barometer of the health of our church should be prayer. The thing that we've missed over the last few years has been praying for our gang, praying for our village. We are doing everything we can to use money well, to use our time well, to use our energies well. But we need so much more. We need more miraculous things to happen. We need venues for free. We need new people to find grace amongst us. We need to keep on going with what we're doing, because we can't let the Albertices down. We can't let the hundreds of children who now rely on us for food down. We can't. I want to keep on going, creating safe spaces in churches and workplaces across the city for survivors of abuse. God has given us too many things to hold for us to then try and do it in our strength. We must do it in His. So we're going to get back to praying. Listen, we've learned a whole bunch of stuff over the last couple of years, and one of them has been, well, you don't have to come to my house in order for an event to happen. So we're going to do it on Zoom, because that means more people can come. And I know none of us want on Zoom, but we'll deal with it. We're going to start on the 30th of January. We'll do it once a month. We're going to pray, and I will be sat on Zoom at 8 p.m. in the evening. The link will be on the church website. We will be there for half an hour. I will pray, and if you want to get a word in edgeways, you have to butt in. There are plenty of opportunities, because I know prayer is bigger. And yes, prayer is silence. And yes, prayer is stillness. And yes, prayer is contemplation and listening. And yes, we want to pray for other things. We want to pray for each other. We want to bring our own needs to Jesus. There are plenty of other opportunities for those things. This is going to be for anybody who wants to join me to pray specifically for God to lead, bless, and provide for our gang. We're going to pray for the money we need to carry on going. We're going to pray for a venue to come up that's free, that we can either have full-time or once in a while. We're going to pray for new people to join us. We're going to pray for a fresh leading of God into new dark spaces that we might be able to shine a light into. We're going to pray for the resiliency of our faith. We're going to pray for our young people and our children, that they might have the wisdom and the ability and the tenacity and the resiliency and the joyfulness to grow up in this world, which is way more complex than the world I grew up in, and still cling on to Jesus somehow. We're going to pray for God to do amongst us that which only He can do, rather than me just offering in and you just offering that which only we can do. So, the barometer of the life of our church is going to be around prayer. We're going to start on the 30th of January. If you're up for it, click on the link and I'll see you there.